On Monday, July 21st, The Bold and the Beautiful promises to deliver one of the most explosive episodes of the summer. As the celebration of Liam Spencer's miraculous recovery unfolds, a shadow of doubt begins to creep in, not from his family or friends, but from someone trained to see through medical miracles. John Finnegan is no stranger to strange cases, but something about Liam's clean bill of health doesn't sit right. The tests are clear, the scans are flawless, and yet Finn's gut tells him something is very wrong. Meanwhile, Grace Buckingham basks in the aftermath of what seems like a successful scheme, but cracks are already beginning to show. Her name has entered the conversation, her reputation is on the line, and one wrong move could expose her to a scandal that would rock the medical world and the Forrester family to its core. This Monday, questions will be asked, lies will unravel, and Finn will embark on a quiet investigation with shocking consequences. What began as a second chance at life for Liam may turn into a case of betrayal that none of them saw coming. In the whirlwind world of the bold and the beautiful, even the most joyous moments can hide a sinister twist. And that's exactly where things stand as we head into the July 21st episode. It all began when Liam Spencer, known for romantic missteps and emotional turmoil, faced something far more terrifying than heartbreak: a life-threatening brain tumor. The diagnosis was fast, the prognosis grim, and the urgency intense. Enter Grace Buckingham, a confident, respected medical professional with ties to the Forresters and a reputation built on brilliance. When she confirmed Liam's tumor and proposed immediate intervention, no one questioned her. After all, time was of the essence, and her credentials were impeccable. Bill Spencer, Liam's father, wasted no time. Desperate to save his son, he spared no expense, emotionally or financially. He poured over $1 million into Liam's treatment, entrusting Grace and her medical team with his son's life. The operation was fast-tracked, and just as quickly, a miracle was announced. Liam was tumor-free. Cue the tears, the gratitude, the hugs. For a moment, everything was perfect. But while others celebrated, one man stood still, Dr. John Finnegan. His trained eye, his intuition as both a husband and a healer, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The MRI results were too clean, the recovery too swift, and Grace, too eager to close the case. Friday's episode ended with Bill relieved and Liam rejoicing. But Finn wore a look of quiet skepticism. As a doctor who values evidence and transparency, he couldn't ignore the unease building in his mind. Why were the reports so hard to trace? Why was Grace suddenly unavailable for follow-up questions? And why did Bill casually drop her name, not realizing he had unknowingly exposed the key to unlocking a much deeper mystery? That's where Monday picks up. The pieces are all in place, the setup is complete. But behind the scenes of the so-called miracle lies something far darker. A plan, a payoff, and a potential betrayal that could change lives and careers forever. For those who have followed the bold and the beautiful long enough, the name Grace Buckingham carries a weight of ambition, intelligence, and emotional complexity. She's no stranger to high-stakes decisions, but what's unfolding now is beyond risky. It's criminal, and it all stems from one powerful motivator: desperation. In the weeks leading up to Liam Spencer's diagnosis, whispers about Grace's personal finances began surfacing in hushed conversations at the hospital. Mounting debt, questionable consulting contracts, a recent withdrawal from a research grant that had gone mysteriously unreported. Rumors began to swirl that Grace had gotten in over her head, and when opportunity knocked, she opened the door without hesitation. That opportunity came in the form of a vulnerable, worried father, Bill Spencer, a man with deep pockets and a soft spot for his children. Grace, seeing both the emotional volatility of the situation and the access to immense wealth, knew exactly how to play her part. All she needed was a convincing story, a false diagnosis, some doctored imaging, and a surgical narrative that wouldn't hold up under close scrutiny but would suffice in the chaos of crisis. The tumor was never real. The symptoms were likely misinterpreted or exaggerated. Grace, using her medical influence and connections, pushed through an expedited treatment protocol. She orchestrated the entire process from start to finish, making sure Bill saw what he needed to see and heard what he wanted to believe. Her fatal flaw? She got sloppy. In her rush to collect the promised $1 million payment, Grace didn't cover her tracks as carefully as she should have. Most notably, she allowed her name to be associated too openly with the procedure. When Bill praised her role in saving Liam's life, he unknowingly triggered the very alarm bells that would alert Finn, a detail-oriented physician with an analytical mind. Had Grace insisted on anonymity, or at least redirected credit to a fictional colleague, she may have pulled off her scheme unnoticed. But greed clouded her judgment. She wanted recognition, she wanted Bill's gratitude, and she wanted that money now. Now, with Finn starting to poke holes in her story, the entire structure is at risk of collapse. Grace underestimated him, and she underestimated the interconnectedness of the Forrester world. A single slip-up in this family is rarely ignored, and once someone like Finn starts asking questions, the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. She thought she was orchestrating a perfect con. Instead, she might have signed her own professional death sentence. John Finn Finnegan isn't just a doctor. He's a man of science, a man of principle, and when the stakes are high enough, a man willing to become something more, a detective. In Monday's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful, we'll witness a side of Finn rarely seen on screen. Not the devoted husband or compassionate physician, but the investigator, calm, calculated, relentless. Finn's intuition has always been sharp, but it's what he does with that intuition that sets him apart. While others are swept up in relief over Liam's recovery, Finn remains eerily still, staring at Liam's MRI scans, revisiting the medical records, and mentally piecing together the inconsistencies that others have ignored. It starts small. A question here, a cross-reference there, a timeline that doesn't quite match up. Why was the MRI ordered from an external lab rather than through the hospital's imaging center? Why were the results only reviewed by Grace and her unnamed associate? Why are there no clear case notes in Liam's digital chart? It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. And Finn knows the signs of a cover-up when he sees them. In a gripping scene to come, Finn quietly closes his office door, pulls up Liam's scans on a secure terminal, and begins to analyze them frame by frame. His brow furrows, his breath slows. The images are pristine, too pristine. For a tumor that was supposedly advanced and threatening Liam's cognitive functions, the evidence just isn't there. In fact, there may never have been a tumor at all. That's when Finn's suspicion turns into conviction. And like any good detective, he doesn't act impulsively. He starts with subtle outreach, possibly contacting colleagues in radiology for second opinions. He checks the licensing of the lab Grace used. He follows the paperwork, the emails, and the gaps in the chain of custody. Every step reveals another piece of a dangerous puzzle, but he knows he can't do it alone for long. There's too much at stake, and the deeper he digs, the more dangerous the implications become. If Grace faked Liam's diagnosis and took money for it, this isn't just unethical, it's criminal. And if Bill finds out he was manipulated into handing over a fortune, the fallout could be explosive. So Finn does what any wise man would do. He reaches out for backup. Who better than Bridget Forrester, a fellow doctor and someone who understands both the medical world and the personal complexities of this powerful family. Together, Finn and Bridget may just become the duo that unravels one of the most shocking schemes in recent B&B history. But time is running out. Grace is starting to sense that something's wrong, and as Finn gets closer to the truth, the question becomes, how far will Grace go to protect her secret? In the high-stakes world of the bold and the beautiful, unlikely alliances often form in moments of urgency, and Monday's episode may mark the beginning of one of the most impactful partnerships in recent memory, Dr. John Finn Finnegan and Dr. Bridget Forrester joining forces. Bridget Forrester is no stranger to medical drama. As a seasoned physician and a member of the Forrester dynasty, she has seen the worst of human behavior, both inside and outside the operating room. She understands how easily lines can be blurred between care and manipulation, especially when emotions and egos run high. That's why, when Finn approaches her with his concerns about Liam's miraculous recovery, she doesn't dismiss him, she listens. Their exchange begins professionally. Finn presents the scans, the absence of any pre-surgical evidence, the missing details in Liam's chart. Bridget, ever the thorough doctor, combs through the medical records with precision. Her silence as she reviews the files speaks volumes. "Where's the original diagnosis report?" she finally asks, voice steady but skeptical. "And why are all the imaging notes signed by Grace and no one else?" The deeper they dig, the clearer the pattern becomes. This wasn't just a misdiagnosis. It was a fabrication. As the two doctors pool their knowledge and resources, the scope of the fraud begins to take shape. Grace didn't just bend the rules. She broke them in spectacular fashion. She constructed a false narrative, leveraged her authority to push it through, and accepted a massive payout from Bill Spencer in the process. And yet, the most disturbing part isn't the fraud itself. It's the motive behind it. Bridget and Finn begin to suspect that Grace's financial situation may have driven her to desperate measures. Old debts, declining professional status, and a personal life in quiet turmoil may have all played a role. But intent doesn't erase consequence. Together, Finn and Bridget now face a difficult decision. Do they go to the authorities immediately? Do they confront Grace privately? Or do they warn Bill and the Forrester family before the news leaks beyond hospital walls? Whichever path they choose, the alliance between Bridget and Finn represents something more than just a working partnership. It's a line in the sand, a refusal to let deception masquerade as healing. And as the tension mounts, one thing becomes clear. Grace's days of hiding behind her lab coat are numbered. When the truth begins to unravel in The Bold and the Beautiful, it does so quickly, like a pulled thread on a finely woven garment. And for Grace Buckingham, that thread is about to snap. What began as a calculated scheme, a fabricated diagnosis, a falsified treatment plan, and a $1 million payout, is now spiraling into full-blown crisis. The walls are closing in. Dr. Finn is circling with cold, hard evidence. Bridget Forrester has confirmed the inconsistencies. And Grace? She's beginning to lose her grip. At first, she attempts to keep up appearances, calm, controlled, professional. But behind closed doors, her panic is setting in. Finn's questions are growing sharper. Her explanations are becoming weaker. And worst of all, her own confidence is beginning to betray her. Grace knows that once the Forrester family learns the truth, she'll lose more than her job. Her reputation, her medical license, and possibly even her freedom will be at risk. Hospitals don't take kindly to fraud. The legal system takes it even less kindly when over $1 million are involved. And then there's Bill Spencer, a man who's never been known for forgiveness. When he finds out that he was played, manipulated into thinking his son's life was at risk, the consequences could be volcanic. Bill has power, wealth, and influence. Grace may have scammed him once, but the backlash will be swift and merciless. If Bill goes public, Grace's name could be ruined nationwide. But perhaps the most heartbreaking fallout is the loss of trust. To those who once respected her, especially her former colleagues at the hospital, Grace will become a symbol of greed over ethics. And in the eyes of Liam Spencer, the victim of this elaborate lie, the emotional toll may be irreversible. He may have been healed, but he was never truly sick. And now, he's left questioning every moment of his so-called recovery. Desperate, Grace may try to manipulate the narrative, suggest it was a misreading, a misunderstood scan, a judgment call gone wrong. But the documentation is too thin, the hole's too wide. And with Bridget and Finn working in tandem, there's little chance her lies will hold. As The Bold and the Beautiful prepares to unleash the consequences of Grace Buckingham's deception, one truth becomes undeniable. This isn't just a case of one woman making a mistake. The scale of the scheme, the sophistication of the cover-up, and the timing all suggest something deeper, something darker. Could Grace really have done this alone? It's a question that begins to haunt Finn and Bridget as they continue their behind-the-scenes investigation. After all, a diagnosis of this magnitude, involving MRI scans, medical records, and surgical protocols, typically involves more than one pair of hands. So where is this elusive colleague that Bill mentioned Grace had been working with? Why hasn't anyone met them? Why is there no trace of their name in the system? This opens up a thrilling new possibility. Grace may have had help, and if so, the conspiracy could be wider than anyone expected. Here are a few theories viewers should keep their eyes on. The mystery colleague Bill mentioned that Grace worked with another doctor, but no one in the hospital has been able to identify this person. Could this colleague be a fabricated identity, or someone working in the shadows, perhaps falsifying medical scans for cash? An inside man at the hospital. What if someone inside the hospital helped Grace push the paperwork through? A lab technician? A record administrator? If Grace has allies within the system, the entire facility's integrity could be compromised. This would also explain why the digital logs on Liam's case were so limited and inconsistent. Someone else targeting Bill. Here's a twist no one's prepared for. What if this wasn't about Liam at all? What if someone used Grace to target Bill Spencer, knowing his love for his son would make him an easy mark? Could a former business rival or jilted enemy be pulling strings from the background, orchestrating a medical fraud not for money, but for revenge? Grace's past comes back. We still don't know the full story of why Grace was in such dire financial straits. Could she be blackmailed? Owed a debt to the wrong person? Maybe her participation in the scheme was coerced. If that's the case, exposing her might also expose someone far more dangerous. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. This story is far from over. With each layer Finn and Bridget peel back, they're not just uncovering fraud. They're stepping into something more layered, more personal, and potentially far more threatening. The episode may end with some answers, but don't expect closure just yet. B&B is known for its slow burn twists, and this storyline feels like it's just heating up. The fallout from Grace Buckingham's deception doesn't just shake a hospital system or ripple through financial circles. It hits where it hurts most: the hearts and minds of the people caught in the blast radius. Each character affected by this scheme has their own battle to fight. And as the drama unfolds, the emotional stakes become just as powerful as the plot twists. Finn, a doctor torn between truth and loyalty. Dr. John Finn Finnegan has always prided himself on being rational, ethical, and honest. But now he finds himself in a position where exposing the truth could shatter lives, including Liam's, who already believes he was dying just days ago. Finn is also painfully aware that uncovering the fraud means destroying Grace, someone once seen as a respected colleague. Finn faces an internal struggle. Does he prioritize justice or compassion? And what happens if his pursuit of truth pushes his own emotional limits, or strains his marriage to Steffi should the Forresters be pulled into the crossfire? Grace, from confidence to collapse, Grace started this with bravado. A woman cornered by debt but unwilling to ask for help. She used her medical knowledge as a weapon, believing she could control the narrative. But as her scheme unravels, so does her poise. Expect to see emotional breakdowns, moments of panic, and raw vulnerability in Grace's character. She may try to justify her actions. I was desperate. I didn't mean harm. But deep down, she knows she crossed a line that can't be undone. Will she accept responsibility? Or will she double down on denial to save what little she has left? Bill Spencer, betrayed and ready to explode. Bill Spencer is many things. A ruthless businessman, a devoted father, and a man who rarely gets played. But this time, he was fooled, manipulated, used. When the truth reaches him, don't expect restraint. Bill's anger could light a fire under this entire storyline. He may go after Grace legally, or he might take matters into his own hands. The emotional betrayal, thinking his son was dying, only to learn it was all a lie, could push Bill to dangerous places. His protective instincts over Liam may turn into an obsession with revenge. Liam, the unknowing victim, perhaps the most quietly tragic figure in all of this, is Liam Spencer. He believed his life was ending, he faced his mortality, he made peace with old wounds, and now he may find out it was all fiction, a cruel illusion. The emotional toll on Liam will be devastating, the gratitude he felt, the closeness he re-established with Bill, the tears, the existential dread, all based on nothing. Will Liam spiral emotionally? Will he feel foolish or violated? And most of all, will he ever be able to trust another doctor again? The calm before the storm. The Bold and the Beautiful marches into a pivotal Monday episode. The pieces are all in motion, and the tension is razor sharp. The stage is set for a dramatic reckoning, but for now, everything hangs by a thread. Dr. Finn Finnegan is getting closer to the truth with every passing minute. Bridget Forrester is on his side, lending not only her expertise but the weight of her family name. Together, they hold the key to unlocking a scheme so elaborate it fooled one of the savviest men in Los Angeles, Bill Spencer himself. Grace Buckingham may have thought she could control the game, but her lies are beginning to close in on her. Every attempt to spin the truth only makes her guilt more obvious, her movements more desperate. Liam, still unaware of the deceit he's been wrapped in, faces a painful realization that the miracle he clung to might have been nothing but fiction. The emotional fallout for him could be the most heartbreaking of all. And as for Bill, if he catches wind of the truth, if he realizes he was exploited through his love for his son, there's no telling how far he'll go to get justice. All the signs are pointing in one direction: a storm is coming. And when it breaks, no one will escape untouched. Thank you for joining us for this in-depth preview of Monday's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. With suspicions rising, alliances forming, and secrets on the verge of being exposed, the drama has never been more intense. Will Finn uncover the full truth? Will Grace face justice? And how will Bill and Liam react when everything comes crashing down? Don't miss a second of the action. Monday, July 21st promises to be unforgettable. Hello and goodbye.